You didn't know that I'm a fucking ninja.
While I am state-of-the-art, Gray, I am not a ninja.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Underrated Podcast. This is a brand new podcast where we discuss the films that we feel are underrated or perhaps underappreciated, or even ones that just slipped under that radar that passed most people by. This show is the collaboration of friends and podcasters, and together we are the Undercast Company. Today we are going to be talking about a movie, Upgrade, a 2018 Blumhouse film starring Logan... Blumhouse?
Blumhouse.
Oh, sorry.
Right?
Blumhouse film, starring Logan Marshall Green and directed by Leigh Whannell.
Leigh Whannell.
Leigh Whannell?
Leigh Whannell.
Leigh Whannell. Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's Leigh Whannell.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Logan Whannell.
From Saw, right?
Yeah,
Like,
Leigh Whannell.
Logan Paul from YouTube? Yeah.
This movie received pretty good reviews with a 7.6 on IMDb and 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. And in classic Blumhouse fashion, it was made with a low budget of $5 million. So, of course. This movie is set in the not-so-distant future and is about a mechanic who, after a malfunctioning self-driving car accident, leaves him and his wife at the mercy of some rough dudes, killing his wife and leaving him as a paraplegic. He then volunteers to be the test subject of an experimental computer chip implant that gains sentience and helps him take down those that killed his wife. But in classic Blumhouse fashion, things are not always what they seem. So, Derek.
Yeah, it's just Derek and Ariel
yeah,
today.
it's just me and Derek and Ariel.
It's gonna be.
We're all still here. We're just in the background.
Yeah.
They didn't want to let us talk.
They did not watch
see
the movie.
Fucking movie. If you guys...
That shouldn't be anything.
Well,
So
the problem with it streaming right now is that it's actually
too damn high.
It's actually only exclusively on Cinemax right now, or you can rent it or buy it.
Or get it from the library, like my cheap ass.
I tried to rent it from Amazon. They don't have it on there.
Yeah, so it was
Amazon, shape up, please.
So since it was a 2018 film, it's kind of at the moment kind of hard to stream in any place.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it will hopefully prove to you that you should, once it does start streaming, right away watch it or
check this shit out.
Yeah. Or, go and at least rent it. Redbox might actually have it. I don't know.
Or
I
just
didn't
go
check
to the
Redbox. I
library,
have
like
Cinemax.
my cheap ass, because it was free and there was nobody in the waiting list, so I got it right away.
I'm really surprised that libraries give out movies like
libraries
that.
Just get you a movie, and it's like a 3-week rental. It's fucking dope.
Yeah. Well.
And there's even like
Is it for free?
It's for free
if you're in
and
a rural area.
There's even places like there's streaming services that certain libraries have, depending on what library, and they'll let you like get a 24-hour rental for free. So it's a really good resource.
Yeah. Well, so overall, for me personally, I really, really enjoyed this movie. There was a lot of twists and turns in my opinion, but then I was like, oh, this is a Blumhouse film, and even though it's not a horror movie in the sense, it does capture that twists and turns. And I think this kind of more establishes that Blumhouse are kind of becoming like that good version of M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
In the twists and turns. But yeah, we'll talk more about like for me personally, like what twists and turns, and like I think with at least one aspect of this movie, there was like 4 for me.
Yeah. Well,
personally.
the ending, I thought, when I was watching this movie, I was like, I know where the fuck this movie's gonna go. I know, like it's gonna be like, oh, it was really the millionaire along. He was setting him up, and that's where it like kind of teased that it was going. I was like, yeah, okay, like I've seen this movie before. Like I was like, going in, I was like, this is like a solid action movie. I didn't want to see it when it first came out. It seemed like the premise was just like, I don't know about this. But then you suggested doing it for podcast. I was like, I'll give it a try. I heard that was pretty good. But then, I'm like watching, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know where this movie's going. It's just a better than average action movie. And the ending fucking caught me off guard. It was because it was setting me up for being like, if you are really versed in movies and like horror films and you think the twist, it completely does a 180 on you. And it's like, guess what?
I think it's just...
Who summoned me about horror?
Yeah, so, and that's one of the things that, like, with our resident horror aficionado, Alan here, he kind of like has missed an opportunity of watching it, at least right now, because there are some very graphic moments, especially with the kills that he commits in these.
I would say it's more action than horror, though. Honestly,
No, it's not horror.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's a stray away from Blumhouse's horror, because
Yeah.
for the majority of the time, Blumhouse is known as a horror kind of like movie.
Yeah, well, the way I would
company.
describe it is it's because a lot of people were saying, "Oh, it's the better Venom movie" when it came out because it came out around the same time as
That's
Venom.
kind of true.
But
yeah,
the way,
I
what I
guess.
would put it, I would say it's Venom meets Minority Report meets John Wick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's exactly the best way to sum it
Yeah,
up.
that's
I feel
exactly
like.
it. So we're in the aspect of Venom. We're talking about this computer that kind of becomes sentient in or it seems like he just barely becomes sentient in when it gets instilled in this main character Gray's
Yeah, they kind of do a
spinal
surgery
column.
and put it
Yeah,
in and
because
starts
he
talking
becomes
to him.
paraplegic. And so at that moment, I actually looked at when STEM first comes online. In a sense, I was like,
STEM,
"This is
that's the Venom kind of
Yeah.
the AI.
the AI." Yeah, I wrote down. It's literally Jiminy Cricket mixed with Hal from 2001: Space Odyssey in a way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put
Because
it.
at first it's the AI seems like it's okay. It's
It's kind of
recommending.
childlike.
Well, no, not in that sense.
Well, it's
For me,
very,
it's
very-
recommending him to do something very graphic, but he's
It doesn't,
recommending it
understand
on a
things.
he's recommending it on a way because he's basing it off of visuals.
Yeah, he
like-
doesn't understand any nuance or like he's just like do this and this will accomplish this. You know, he doesn't understand
Yeah,
any like
exactly.
way that things are affected on a grander scale. Pretty much, it feels like.
So yeah. So and then it progresses with that, and we'll get to like the big twist at
Yeah.
the end. But for me, the action in itself was really good. The visuals were incredible, especially with like him moving with the AI was actually very scientifically correct in a way. If you were take like that kind of like if you look at I feel like they did their homework and looked at current AI usage of like moving like with artificial limbs and things like that. This kind of like technology, because it is not so distant future, like this technology is possibly coming along.
Maybe.
Well, in
Take
the
that
way
with a grain of salt, though.
well in the way of it being integrated in a nervous system in a way.
Yeah, some aspects, yeah. I mean,
well,
it's definitely fantasy, but like
yeah.
it's based on reality.
Yeah,
but-
based on reality. Yeah, I'm not saying oh yeah, there's going to be a
I
sentient.
know what you're saying.
I'm saying as the medical device person,
yeah,
they do.
yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, overall for me it was a good action movie. Very good. Actually, became like a really good thriller at the end.
Yeah, because it went from pretty good action movie to really great movie
and
based on the
somewhat
ending.
psychological, and
Yeah.
it does like with a good amount of the Blumhouse, especially with the Jordan Peele movies. It pulls into question like moral kind of like situations that exist in the world right now.
In a little bit, I do want to touch on the kind of the themes of this movie, but I want to ask you because you were the one you recommended it that we do this. This was your pick, but you hadn't seen it yet.
No, I just
so-
went off of like the hype of but even the hype was like underground in a way.
Yeah, because I had heard it's like, oh, this movie that nobody saw from last year that's really good. Everybody should have watched this one instead of Venom. Blah blah blah. That's all I ever heard about it last year was good. And when it first came out, like I'm not a fan of Saw, and I was like, oh, it's Leigh Whannell from Saw. Like I was really skeptical about that, but it definitely, proved me wrong. I was really happy to watch this.
Yeah, for me, especially from the trailers, it always had grasped me. I just never got around to watching it myself.
You want to talk about what do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about the action? You want to talk about that crazy ending?
I think we'll save the crazy ending
Okay.
for the end.
But yeah,
Literally.
what
But,
really
yeah,
grabbed
the
me was
action.
the action in it because it is just it's like the action in it is really fucking well done because it does that thing. It's kind of some people call it the reverse POV shot, even though it's kind of from the side. Sometimes it's also called the Snorri cam shot because there's this device that people wear, even though it wasn't done with a Snorri cam, it kind of has that same effect. where you're looking at the character and the camera is kind of fixed, and even though they're moving, like the camera moves with their motion. And usually that's, you see that from like the front or from their perspective, but it's done a lot of times in this movie from the side. And that makes the action in this movie like fucking next level. And it really works with what you were saying about his movements kind of being like robotic, almost like, they are reminiscent of artificial limbs. And that is what, at least until the end, really elevated the movie for me, was all this really innovative action. You don't see it in a lot of movies. The only other movie I've seen that does something kind of similar is Sherlock Holmes 2, The Game of Shadows.
Yeah. Or Sherlock Holmes 1 in the fight, that the boxing fight is kind of similar to that.
Not where it's kind of like tracking on him like that.
Oh,
I'm talking about the fourth sequence where they're running, if you guys remember. But
Gavin Free from Rooster Teeth. I'm sorry. That was a geek moment.
Did you just have a mini stroke there?
No, because a podcast that I watched,
okay.
he did the filming for that.
Okay. But it's really, really fucking well done action just across the board. And the guy, what was the actor's name?
It's Logan. Let me double check it. Logan Marshall Green. He was actually he's the first Shocker in Spider-Man Homecoming.
I was like, where do I know this guy from? Okay. Yeah, he was really fucking good. I thought everybody was good in it. The kind of like the evil, or not, he doesn't end up being really evil, but the kind of like kid genius was
genius.
Good. I wanted to like him.
That was one of the first aspects of flip-flopping, because so he went from me being creepy genius to me feeling bad for him, because like basically like in the middle of it, the Gray and Stem kind of like take themselves offline, and then there's like a shot of him just like, oh man, like he's very kid-like. He's like, in a way, like he even says like, I don't interact with people that much and stuff like that. So
he's
it
like
went
a more
from
likable
him
Elon
being,
Musk.
I don't know. That's what.
How is he not likable?
It was so there was so many aspects that I was like, oh, this is like like especially with the car and the accident that happens. I had written down Elon Musk's worst nightmare happening because it's basically a self-driving car going haywire, and that's one of the things that are keeping self-driving cars from existing.
His worst nightmare is not being able to bioengineer cat girls. Am I right?
Got him. Gotcha,
Twitter,
Elon.
follow Twitter.
Elon, if you're listening, you just got fucking burned.
Sorry. You make a lot of money. But yeah, so that character, like, he just, like, flip-flopped from me, like, okay, he's going to be clearly the bad guy, and then going to, like, oh, he's going to help this guy, like, it seems like genuinely. And then, like, him basically losing control and being like, oh man, like, oh no, and then him possibly seeming like he is the bad guy,
because they do build up. You've watched enough movies like this, you're like, okay, he's gonna be the fucking bad guy. Oh, you're gonna pull one over on me, movie? You're not gonna pull one over on me. And then they did.
Yeah. And then also like the whole aspect of like who was the target of the malfunctioning car and the attack that him and his wife had. Like it goes from it was the wife, because the wife
I kind of thought it was him, but it was not for the reasons that I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so I guess now let's get into that ending, because at the end of the movie he's kind of he's been working with Stem, and they're going to you think, okay, that Elon Musk character is the bad guy, we're gonna go get him, and then you find out, nope, he's been manipulated by Stem too. Stem has been the mastermind pulling the strings. He's the one who killed the wife.
And then it becomes more of 2001 Space Odyssey.
He hired the guys.
He is actually Hal.
And you're like, oh shit, like you've been like being like, okay, like Stem is like vicious, and you're kind of like, he's doing a lot of bad things, but you still kind of like him. And then in the end, you're like, oh my fucking god, he's the one. And then when Elon Musk kills himself, I actually shouted out, or not, gets killed.
He gets killed by Stem.
By Stem, I shouted out, no,
Yeah, you feel, because it's from that character. You go from like, no, you dislike him, then you like him, and then you dislike him again, and then you like him. So. And
then the ending, like the very end, it's so like bleak, but with a silver lining, and I really fucking love that. Like I love those kind of like, it's a bittersweet, but there's just like a tinge of just like.
It also makes you doubt the whole thing. Right at the end too, like just for a second.
Yeah, because I was just like,
and it's a really short second. You're like, no,
yeah, I was
really?
like mad. I was like, they better not fucking be like, this was all a dream. and because they start to be like, oh, he wakes up in his bed, and it's like, oh, you were in his wife is there, you in an accident. And then it cuts back to like, oh no, he's just because there was that weird like scene where they were like talking to all those people from Inception. And they were like, oh yep, they're just going here to dream. I'm like, that's a weird scene. Why is this random Inception scene? But it pays off at the end because he ends up in the dream at the end.
Yeah, speaking of that scene where he like wakes up and thinks that his wife is eating a pizza next to him, I'm like, now there's so many things that you could go back and look now knowing the ending, where it's like, oh,
yeah,
like
I
that was probably STEM testing that out. Like that was
his mind's starting to break, because that's the whole reason he goes into that fake reality, is because he breaks his own mind.
Yeah, but knowing like this whole thing, I think it was like STEM testing that.
Well, I don't think STEM has the ability to do that. I think his mind is starting to wear thin, and that's
because he says a line after that moment where he's like, it felt so real.
Yeah, because I think honestly that's because he's starting to like lose grips on reality. That was it's starting to creep in the end he has that full break. So even though the ending is bad and like you have this guy kind of go out into the world, it is kind of a happy ending for him. Even though it's not real, he gets to go live in this fake reality where he's back with his wife. But I do think this movie, the main core theme of it is kind of automation, versus kind of like quote unquote hard work.
Yeah,
like
because
technology
the main
versus taking over.
character starts off as being basically like a Luddite in his beliefs of being like he's a mechanic on old muscle cars that are considered, you could consider them analog to the cars that exist now.
Exactly, and he's like, oh, I don't know how to, like, everybody uses the regular cars, and he's like, if I use this, I just end up in Canada. It kind of seems like something your dad would say, like, I can't use this computer, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
But I think
there's a reluctance to it,
Yeah,
and then to the point where that puts another spin on it, in that once the moment that he rejects his beliefs and gives in to the automation is the moment of his demise.
Well, I think honestly, his like kind of, because the movie sets up like, oh, he's kind of like doing the right thing, and it does obviously.
It's very Death Wish in his motives, like killing the persons that killed your wife. Like, or John Wick, like you said.
I don't think, yeah, exactly, but I don't think that's him as much as like STEM's kind of manipulating him. But like the point I was trying to make.
Well, he was looking for them before he had STEM. Though.
Yeah, but he didn't want to kill them. But the point I was making is that he doesn't want. He's like very opposed to like technology, and obviously the movie is condemning like just total automation, but it also at the end is kind of like, you know what, if you are hiding from all this, it's gonna get you in the end. Like, if you're, like, totally opposed to this and you're hiding under a rock, because that's the only reason STEM was able to get into his body, is because he was, like, a pure, quote-unquote, human who didn't have any technological things put into him. He was one of the few ones. That's the only reason why he was chosen, why his wife died, is because if he had, like, gone even a little bit with it, STEM wouldn't have been able to choose him. And because he was just hiding under a rock from all this, it ended up getting him. So I think what ultimately the movie is saying is that, yeah, like this, like the kind of like forward technology and like the automation and like, kind of losing our humanity is dangerous, but you can't ignore it either. You have to be aware of it and have to kind of go along with it. So otherwise you will be trampled by it and destroyed by it. And you might not even realize it. Yeah.
So, embrace technology, but still be hesitant towards it.
Yeah.
And then also don't be oblivious on both sides. Don't be oblivious that, technology like is the worst thing ever, but then also don't think that technology is the best thing ever.
Exactly. It's a very balanced message, I think, that this movie gives. It's subtle in some instances, but I really, really enjoyed it.
But going back to like the fighting, the slasher, not slasher, what's that, splatter punk, you could say, kind of things of it. Those were like some crazy ass kills that he had, like just every moment of those kills I was like, oh
yeah,
because there's like a man's mouth gets pulled out, kind of like similar to
that was fucking crazy.
They were the best I could explain
to quote
it.
Sin City, he made a Pez dispenser out of them.
The best I can explain it is that these were Mortal Kombat level of kills. Yeah, that's why he missed his chance.
I really regret it.
Yeah, Alan,
you're gonna watch
this
it.
One,
You'll just have to watch it.
Yeah. But we'll probably do a recap episode at some point of going back and talking about all our movies. But man, this one was fucking good. It surprised me a lot. Like you talked about how the trailers grabbed you. They did not grab me. I was just like, oh my god, it's just another one of these fucking low budget like movies that are like. And usually I feel like when I see a trailer, I have a pretty good feel for a movie. This time I fucked up, like completely. Like I'm really glad you recommended it.
I think at that moment, like, Blumhouse was at a point where there's this is a whole like, they're doing these horror movies that they're good. Like, I think this came out after Get Out. And stuff like
I
that.
might have to watch Happy Death Day because that looked like shit, but maybe it's good.
I've heard that that's good too.
It looked real bad, but
yeah.
But maybe Blumhouse. You got to give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess.
Yeah. So
Jason Blum knows what the fuck is up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that it's still during it even exists now with Blumhouse like that. You're hesitant because you're like. They can't come out with another pretty good movie again.
It's just
the
trailer didn't look good.
is okay.
Yeah, I didn't see Us yet. I love Get Out though. Get Out
is pretty good.
Me.
Yeah,
Us is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I wanted to see Us.
So that coming too is you're hesitant that this production company is
it's not
just
the
getting
company. It just looks like generic action, low budget stuff. Like Leigh Whannell made Saw. It was a big reason.
Yeah, I think all of the Blumhouse movies.
Give him the credit.
I think Blumhouse is known for. I just think now that we cannot, when it comes to Blumhouse movies, you cannot take the trailer at face value.
Yeah, and I've really discovered that even
because they keep things very
because the trailer
wraps.
for Us didn't look great to me, but I want to see it. Like I haven't got around to it, but I do want to see.
I mean, the Get Out trailer at the beginning didn't grab me too.
Yeah. But I really think I just got to start seeing these movies because even though he's a producer, and I usually don't put a lot of credit into producers, I'm much more interested in writers and directors. But he's really got it. He's really a genius when it comes to this kind of shit.
But now I think that now seeing this and it being a non-horror Blumhouse movie, I'm thinking now like, okay, this is gonna be the twist, especially. That's gonna be probably the style of Blumhouse.
Yeah, like you were saying, the new M. Night Shyamalan. Like he really does those kind of like psychological, not quite thrillers, but action movies in a way that is not a lot of people are doing right now.
Yeah, and
he kind of stands alone.
You got to take that. It's very impressive that you're getting the same kind of formula from multiple different writers and multiple different directors, and it's being effective. Yeah. Still.
Yeah.
You're not getting. It's not, at least for now. It's not getting old.
It's kind of like there's the same kind of general like feeling in a lot of these movies, but they do all manage to be very distinct and unique. Like I didn't even know that this was a movie that was set in the near future. I thought it was just gonna be like, oh, like it's gonna be set today. Here's a new technology,
me too.
And then they were running around with that. I love that kind of aesthetic of the very near future. Like I had mentioned, like this feels very Minority Report. Like that's one of my favorite movies. This is Minority Report
of the year 2006.
Right, but it's just kind of like that. Like, oh, it's just like, X years in the future.
Yeah, especially with the self-driving car. Like they're super close to creating that. Tesla is basically almost self-driving in itself.
Yeah, you can tell they did their homework and were like, kind of like, where is the technology going with a lot of this kind of stuff, and how can we put that in a realistic way? And it was very realistic
in that direction. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's probably like I think why more people didn't see it. It's a smaller movie. It didn't get like blown up like Get Out did, which is another Blumhouse one. But it honestly, I think it is. Do you know how it did in Rotten Tomatoes?
87.
87? Yeah. So yeah,
it's been and that was the same for audience score too.
Yeah. So then people liked it. I mean, it only had a budget of $5 million, so even if it didn't make that much at the box office,
I'm hoping that's classic. That's gonna be classic to Blumhouse, because so far they've been doing really, really great work.
Yeah. So this is one that's kind of more under the radar, but I do think that it is getting more and more noticed, and that people are really starting to take note. And especially as the studio gets more and more notoriety, I think that people will
probably come back. And then once it does come out on streaming sites, and
I'm sure it's going to be up on Netflix one of these days.
Yeah, it's just too early.
Whatever the fuck. Yeah, because it just came out last year. But yeah, I really love this movie. I would really recommend it to anybody who wants to see it. If you like good action,
thriller,
horror,
psychological,
sci-fi,
thriller.
like light sci-fi, just all around the board. Just 2 thumbs up for me.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, with that, thanks for listening, everybody. Hit that subscribe button on your podcasting app to make sure you are always notified when a new episode of the show comes out, and continue to hear us babble. And please, if you are willing to give us a rating or a review, it will really help and let us know what else you would like for us to hear from this podcast, because we can only get better with your help. And that includes giving us recommendations and anything like that. Any movies you feel like we could talk about that you feel personally is underrated or under the radar. You could leave a post on our a message on our Instagram or
Facebook,
email us
yeah.
at undercastcompany@gmail.com.
We
And
would love to hear what you guys think are some underrated movies. And we still have a lot of stuff in the works we want to cover, but tell us what you guys think is underrated. We'll check it out.
And once again, we are the Undercast Company. We're made up of myself and my brother, who's not here on this podcast, from Nerd Incorporated, Nerd Incorp on Instagram, Alan and Fred Torres, who are here in light spirit, from District 6, and Derek McDuff, who I also guest star on his Marvel podcast, Infinity Stones and Dragon Bones, where we most recently had a discussion about Avengers Endgame, and we'll be back soon with another film, so stay tuned, and thanks for being amazing.
Take it easy, guys.